Hello ladies and gentlemen, strap in for some stories because today I'm gonna tell you about the times I screwed up in a lab. And let me tell you, it's been a few times. Now I decided to do this because as of late I've been doing a bunch of educational videos, and as much as I enjoy making those videos, I constantly have to double check what I'm saying to make sure I don't give you guys any false information. The whole point is to give you a place where you can find the basic facts and believe that they are true. And today I wanted to film something a little bit more chill. But while thinking about what I wanted to film, I was busy getting ready to complete a prac exercise because classes are online and everything is back in full swing. And I remembered one of the dumb stuff I had done in a prac and then decided I would be sharing that with you. Because when you screw up in a lab, you feel like you're the only person that made such a dumb mistake and you're such an idiot for doing it in the first place. Meanwhile, it's incredibly common. And as a demi, I'm not legally allowed to tell you what type of things people have done wrong in a lab. But I can tell you, there's a lot. And you're probably not the first to mess up the way you are messing up. So if you ever find yourself in a lab and you think it's stressful, don't worry about it. Mistakes happen all the time. As I'm sure you can tell, how else do you think I lost my eyebrows? No, I've never actually burnt my eyebrows off in a lab. I shaved them, there's a video about it. But I'm quickly gonna put them back on. An attempt was made. I should be tilting my head this way because this is the better one. Okay, so story number one. I actually take a lot of pride in my lab skill. I feel like I know what I'm doing when I'm in a lab. Well, when it comes to prac reports, it's each one for themselves. And these prac reports we write are obviously on the work we did in the pracs, and they have to be in at a very specific time, otherwise they're not going to mark it. You're going to get 0 for your prac, and that's really going to bring down your grade. And this one day, I'd already finished my prac report, I'd already finished with my classes for the day. I had one optional class later in the afternoon, and I decided to stay for it because if I didn't do it on the Friday, I had to do it on the Monday. So this time I decided to stay on the Friday. So I was kind of just chilling on campus, working on my computer, doing other homework. And when I finally checked the time, it was a lot closer to the time we had to hand our reports in than I had thought. So I was sitting in the middle of a class. It was like 4 minutes to 12. It had to be in at 12. So when I saw the message on the group saying, you guys, you only have like 5 minutes left to hand in your report, I grabbed mine and I bolted and I just ran straight out of the class to go hand the thing in. And I had to run to the other side of campus. I was sitting in Ruas Hall, which is pretty central, and I had to run to the chemistry building, which is on the corner of campus. And then I had to run up to the 3rd floor to the lab at the end of the hall and then hand it in. So it was a mad dash to get there, and I got there just as the clock struck 12. Thank goodness, because they accepted my paper, and my paper was the last one they took before they went, cool, we're done, we're not taking any more prac reports. And then I walked down the hall back to the class I was in. 2-3 other kids were rushing up the stairs to hand in their reports, and I was like, I'm so sorry for you guys. But I think every student has a story of where they had to run across campus to hand in an assignment on time. But what I don't think every student has a story of is running out of a class that is not theirs. Because I just remained seated after my last class, and then another class started happening, but I was already set up with my computer, so I just stayed there and kept working there. And then obviously ran out of this class to go hand in my report, and the lady who was giving this class was not friendly from the little bit of her I've seen. So when I bolted out of class, she said, "Excuse me," or something like that, and I just shouted, "This isn't my class," and then ran out, and then everyone laughed as I headed out the door. So that was pretty embarrassing. I'm sure it was very entertaining for the people actually in that class. And then because everyone noticed me leaving, obviously, and everyone laughed at me, I did not go back until the end of the class to go get my bag because I was embarrassed. I was like, I'm just gonna wait the class out. I have time. I have my phone on me. It's fine. So that happened. Another time, I was printing a report for microbiology and it had to be handed in when you arrived for your prac, and this prac started at 7:30. Bright and early on a Tuesday morning, but I left home 10 minutes early to go print my report because I was still working on it the previous evening and I don't have a printer at home. I can only go print on campus. So I grabbed my bike instead of walking, got there nice and early, got to the printer shop just as it opened. So I went to the printer, I put my code in, I clicked on the file and was like, cool, okay, print it. And the printer was like, yeah, I don't think so, I'm out of paper. And I was like, what? Now, a dumb thing these printers on campus do is that you have to upload whatever you want to print onto the university's portal, and then you can access the portal on the printer, select the files you had uploaded that you want to print, hit print, and then they come out. And if anything goes wrong while you're printing, be it the printer's out of paper, the printer's out of ink, you're out of funds on your printing card, it then wouldn't print your file and it would delete it off the portal. So you'd have to upload it again, wait for it to process again, get a confirmation email saying, yes, we actually processed it, and then you can print it again. But I didn't bring my laptop to campus or anything because I was on my bike and I had the prac and I didn't need it on campus with me. So if I just said cancel because there wasn't paper, it was gonna delete my report and I have no access to it because it's like a 10-minute ride back home. And I'd have to upload it again, come back to campus, print it again, this time standing in a queue because a queue already formed behind me while I was printing. And then somehow still get to my prac before they start talking, because once they start talking, you're not allowed to enter the room anymore and they mark you absent and they don't accept your report. And there's no way I could get a 0 on my report because the prac mark is only out of the 6 prac reports we hand in. And I can't get 0 for 1/6 of my prac mark because then I'm not going to do well this semester. It was a difficult class. So I kind of button spammed on the printer because I was freaking out a little bit. Not my proudest moment, but the printer was asking me what tray I want to use for paper. And I looked in the trays and saw there was A4 paper in there. So I was like, okay, well, just any of the trays, because all the trays seem to have paper in them. And I hit number 3 because I like the number 3, and number 3 definitely had paper in it. And then it said it was printing. So I took a deep breath, stood back, and turn my phone on so I can record my report printing, because I always insert the part where I print my report in my vlogs. But this time it didn't look the way it usually did, because when I hit use tray number 3, it started printing my report on an A3 piece of paper and not an A4 piece of paper. Oh, candy. Thank you so much. I appreciate your efforts. Get yourself a boyfriend who gets you candy. 10 out of 10 would recommend. In other words, my report printed literally double the size it was supposed to. It was poster size. And there was nothing I could do about it, so I just laughed and I took it and I texted my friend while I was walking over to the labs, asking her number 1, have they started yet? Is everyone in yet? Because I was rushing over. It was already 7:30 and we were gonna start soon. And I also told her, dude, I screwed up my report, and she laughed at me. I got there and I went up to the teacher. I had it folded up and was like, okay, ma'am, this happened. It's a little big. Is this okay? And thank goodness she laughed at me too. She was very entertained by the fact that it was an A3 assignment and not an A4 assignment. And I was relieved because she was accepting it. She didn't say, nah, I'm not taking it because you printed it wrong, because some people would do that. And then she just told me I had to staple it and she'd take it. So this one kid behind me was nice enough to be like, here, you can use my stapler, and then I handed it in. Usually I hand it in those little like slip pockets that you can put paper in, but obviously this didn't fit in there. So I was glad this person was nice enough to give me their stapler. But now to times I've actually messed up in a prac. I think a good one to start off with happened in the inorganic chemistry labs in 2nd year. We were doing this experiment where a reaction had to take place and a precipitate had to form, which is basically a solid that settles at the bottom of the liquid. And for that to happen, the concentration of the solute had to be high enough in the solution for it to actually start making the solid, so we had to evaporate some of the water so that the ratio of solid to liquid was higher. So I was busy evaporating my liquid, but you had to do it slowly because it can't boil. If it boils, it disrupts the formation of the crystals and you're not going to get the right product. So you had to keep it just below a simmer for 20 to 40 minutes, and I was not having it because it's the last thing I had to do, then I could go home. And I was so over this prac, I wanted to go home. And before I continue with the story, I want to do an experimental eyeshadow look, so I'm going to do a rainbow in my crease. So after 20 minutes had passed, I was like, yo, why aren't we done yet? And I asked one of the demis if he thought I was done yet, and he was like, you're close, but maybe you can let it go for a little while longer. But I knew this experiment was gonna stand in a fume hood for a week. And I was thinking, in a week it's going to evaporate more than enough, and I'm going to have more than enough precipitate at the end of the day if I am like 1 or 2 milliliters over the required amount. So I was like, dude, honest opinion, do you think I can just go? And I could ask him that because I was kind of buddy-buddy with this demi. I was one of the few kids who actually enjoyed the pracs, so he got to know me. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, I think your thing looks fine. You can go. And I was like, good enough for me, see y'all next week. So I transferred mine to a different container and said adios and left the lab. And as I'm sure you can imagine, being impatient is not the way to get anything done in the lab. Because the next week when we got our samples back, I had absolutely no precipitate. Nothing formed, which I was not expecting because I was really so close to the amount they wanted us to evaporate it towards that I thought, okay, maybe I'll get a little bit less, like 3 grams instead of 5 grams, but no, I got absolutely nothing, which costed me at the end of the day because I had to evaporate it again for another 40 minutes the next week to get some type of precipitate, which was a paste instead of a crystal because I messed it up, and consequently had a nightmare of a prac report to write. Which, if you've never worked in a lab, I don't know if this one will really be that shocking to you, but coming back after a week to find out everything you had done failed and you're gonna have to redo it and potentially wait another week to get your results, it hurts. But if you're thinking, I haven't really had any lab accidents, life is chilled, I haven't done anything too bad, the next story is for you. When I was in physical chemistry, a class I did not like. I don't like anything with physics in the name. I don't like physics, I don't like metaphysics, I don't like physical chemistry, none of that. Keep that stuff away from me. But I was in physical chemistry and we had to measure the temperature change in an acid-base reaction. And we had to do calculations based on that and all that jazz. Which, by the way, was experiment 1 out of 5 that we were doing that day. So it was gonna be a busy day and we had to get this done. We were working in groups of 3 and I was working with 2 of my friends, Justin and Shannon, and I was like, okay, cool. Shannon, you do that part, Justin, you do that part. I'll go collect the acid and base samples so that I'm just running up and down the whole time and I know what I'm doing. I'm not involved in the actual experiment because you kind of have to wait and monitor and write stuff down, so I let them do that and I ran around. So I was standing with a volumetric flask. They look like this. And I put a funnel in the top and I put it under the large container holding the sodium hydroxide. If you don't know what that is, it's a pretty strong base that can hurt you if you don't treat it well. So I was careful but confident because several times before I've poured in acids and bases and nothing went wrong. So I was standing under the tap and letting it run out, and it wasn't running very fast. It was because the container wasn't open at the top. It kind of has like airflow at the top, so it actually comes out the bottom, and that airflow was twisted shut. So it was coming out pretty slow. And I was like, you know what, this is fine because the last bit you have to fill it up has to go really slow, otherwise you overfill it and then you have to like try and get it exactly onto this line. So I was more than okay with the slow flow. But then this one demi came over and saw that I was still busy pouring after a while, so he went, "Why are you taking so long? You didn't open the cap at the top," and twisted it open. So now there was airflow and everything could come out quicker. But my flask was almost full, so when he did this, a rush of this base came out, filled the thing up and overflowed a decent amount. Not just like a few drops or so, it like overflowed. I, knowing the danger of these chemicals, stepped back, put everything down and quickly stuck my hands under running water so I could wash it off. Because I wasn't wearing long socks the way I was supposed to, splashed on my exposed ankles and I had to get that off as soon as possible. And while I was trying to get it off, this demi came over to me and yelled at me for spilling the base all over the place. So I was here doing damage control, trying to prevent my own flesh from being eaten by this chemical. This man poured on me through his actions, and he was yelling at me for being irresponsible and messing chemicals all over the lab. And I just said nothing. I wasn't having it, but I also wasn't gonna take him on. I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm taking this stuff off of me. And then he was mad at me because I wasn't acknowledging him. I was just like, okay. When he yelled at me, I said, okay. That was it. And I was like, okay, and then continued cleaning myself. And he was like, no, you should listen to me. I'm your superior and you're supposed to listen to everything I have to say. And I was so mad at this guy, but I knew you couldn't just yell at a demi in the lab. So I just left it. I went back to my friends and was like, can you guys believe this? And they obviously saw everything happen and they were like, yeah, no, it's so ridiculous. And we got a vent about it. And then for the rest of the day, I had the pleasure of having super itchy ankles where it had splashed on me. And I think that guy got in trouble from the lab seniors because something had happened in a lab, and also the demis can be held responsible because he was technically supposed to watch and not interfere. So I think he was trying to cover his bases. I was not impressed with whatever he was trying to do. But luckily the concentration of what we were using was low enough that it didn't suffer any chemical burns. And even though I knew the concentration wasn't that high because we had to prep beforehand and write down what we were working with and what concentration was and all that, it's still a bit of a scary moment when you actually mess this stuff on yourself. You're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, okay, let's get this off, let's do all this stuff. What did the first aid say again? Moral of the story, 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Now before I get to my last story where I almost cost the university money, I'm quickly going to tell you what I'm going to do with my eyeshadow. Have the rainbow going in the crease. Now I'm going to pick up some dark green and attach it to the blue underneath, and then have some light green in the inner corner to attach to the yellow eye up there. And I'm gonna smudge it out into the blue. And this is a look I had planned a long time ago because I had wanted to do my makeup in the analytical chemistry labs where I could weigh in micrograms the mass of my palettes. So I can weigh them before I do my eyeshadow and after I do my eyeshadow to tell you exactly in micrograms how much makeup you wear on your face. Then for on the lid, I'm gonna use the shimmer pink right here. So for my last story. This happened this year, actually in first semester. We got to work with centrifuges. And the centrifuge is the most expensive machinery that let us work with on our own. I mean, we work with pipettes and glassware and other such things which are in the few hundreds, but they are replaceable. Centrifuges, however, cost quite a bit more, but they let us use them. We obviously come in contact with more expensive machinery, but then there's always someone watching what you're doing, and they touch it, you don't touch it, you kind of just get to watch. But this was our first lesson on how to use a centrifuge, and we were all excited. Basically what this thing does is it takes small samples and spins them around really fast to increase the effects of gravity on them, to speed up the settling of the solids at the bottom of the tube. And because they spin, there is a lot of force involved in there. And if you do something wrong, the thing can literally shoot through the wall. They made sure to tell us this before we started working with them. But ultimately, they are very easy to work with. You just have to balance it, meaning if you put one tube on one side, you put one tube on the other side. And then you let it do its thing for a set amount of time. So we were sitting and waiting for it to do its thing for 5 minutes. I was sitting with Mike. You've met him before. And then while talking, for some reason I cannot explain to you, I decided I was gonna slap the top of the centrifuge. And I don't know why I did that. I don't understand. I don't know why I felt the need to drop my hand on the top of the machine while it was going. But when I slapped the top of the thing, it sent enough vibrations through the machine to throw it off balance. And you can immediately hear when it goes off balance. It goes from a gentle whirring sound to a very rough shaking sound, and the thing was actually shaking on the table. We were both like, oh my gosh, what have we done? This is so bad. And immediately hit the emergency stop and unplugged it and made sure it stopped. And Mike was looking at me like, what have you done? Because our experiment was in there and we weren't sure this would have any effect on it. And we were both like, oh no, oh no, oh no. So we immediately got the guy in charge of the lab and was like, hey, this happened. And it took a few minutes for us to actually find him because he was obviously busy in the lab. And when he got back, the thing was still spinning and still busy slowing down. So this whole time, there was a loud sound informing everyone nearby that something had gone wrong and it was our fault. And I was acting calm and told Mike like, no, this is fine. We'll just ask him to reset it for us and to check it and make sure everything is fine. And in the back of my head, I was like, what if I threw it off balance and like bent something on the inside and now we can't use it anymore and I'm gonna be in so much trouble? How the hell am I gonna pay for lab equipment that I broke? And man, I was getting a little stressed. But luckily, the lab dude is super chilled. He is so great and he is so much help, especially when writing prac reports. He's one of those wonderful people that don't just tell you, oh, you're supposed to do it like this, but he also explains to you why so that you understand why and will do it that way yourself. And he was very nice. He set it up again for us and explained to us, you know, it's okay if this happens and it's not gonna influence your experiment in any way, yada yada yada. And I was just so relieved. But I think that was the biggest screw up I've had in the lab because I could have damaged something very expensive. Let's try pink lipstick today because we're already going all colorful. This is the color Solo by ColourPop. I've had other screw ups in the lab where I just did the experiment wrong. There's one time we were working with a jelly that we had melted and you were supposed to mix in your sample before it solidified, and I missed that part apparently because I took it out of the warm water bath and let it chill on my cold table in a rack for like 10 minutes before trying to add my sample. And then I was like, oh no, why did this not work? But then this is the final result for this experimental look to go with all these stories of experimenting. Let me know if you guys want to hear more about things I've done in the lab because it took a while for me to get as comfortable as I am in a lab. And if you have any stories about things you've done in the lab, feel free to drop them down below because I'm sure there's a variety of things that have happened in this world. But then this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you again next time. Bye! What are you doing? Come, lie down.